My name is Lucille Sevigny, 32 years old, and 7 days before I was supposed to become someone's wife, my boyfriend disappeared. No call, no text, no warning, nothing. The venue was booked. The caterer had the final head count. The honeymoon flights were paid for. The ring box was still in my dresser drawer because Adrian always said he liked knowing I kept it close, like proof that our future was already locked in. 1 week before the wedding, we were supposed to meet at my apartment to go over the final walkthrough details for the venue the next morning. Seating chart, meal counts, flower placement, the small, exhausting things that make a wedding feel less like romance and more like project management with better clothes. At 7 p.m., I texted him, "Are you on your way?" Nothing. At 8, I called, straight to voicemail. That alone made my stomach tighten. Adrian was the kind of man who replied before you finished typing. He could send 3 voice notes about almond milk brands and still apologize for responding late after 4 minutes. He once texted me from a dentist chair with cotton stuffed in his mouth because he didn't want me to worry. For him to vanish like that felt wrong in a way my body understood before my brain did. By 9, I called his older sister, Celeste. She hadn't heard from him. I called his parents, Margaret and Victor. Nothing. By midnight, I was driving past his apartment, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. His lights were off. His car was gone. I sat in the parking lot staring at those dark windows, making excuses for him because love turns you into a defense attorney for people who are hurting you. Maybe his phone died. Maybe he fell asleep somewhere. Maybe he had an accident. Maybe he was in a hospital, unable to say my name. The next 24 hours were a blur of fluorescent lights, police forms, and my own voice cracking on phone calls. I called hospitals. I called friends. I filed a missing person report with a photo of the man I was supposed to marry in 6 days. His father called me every few hours, asking if I knew anything. His mother cried so hard I could barely understand her. And I was there, holding everyone else together while quietly falling apart. On the 3rd day, the police found him. He was fine, not injured, not robbed, not trapped somewhere without a phone. Fine. He was staying with an old college friend named Darren 3 hours away because, according to the officer, he needed space. Space. 7 days before our wedding. For about 4 seconds, relief washed through me so violently I almost sat down. Then it turned cold, sharp, final. He had let me call hospitals. He had let his parents panic. He had let me stand in a police station describing the birthmark near his collarbone like I was identifying someone already gone. And he had been sitting 3 hours away, safe, silent, and unwilling to speak to me. The police said he refused to call me. No explanation, no message, just space. After 5 years together, that was what I got. 5 years of birthdays, rent discussions, family dinners, flu medicine, late-night drives, and stupid arguments about whether the couch should face the window. I knew he hated mushrooms, but would eat them on pizza if he thought I looked tired. He knew I couldn't sleep without the fan running. I held his hand through his grandfather's funeral. He held me when my company downsized, and I thought I was next. We had survived long distance for 8 months, 2 moves, and 1 awful Thanksgiving where his mother called my mashed potatoes interesting. And this was how it ended. Voicemail, a police welfare check, and a man hiding at a friend's house because adulthood got heavy. So I started making calls, different calls this time. The venue deposit was gone, $1,500. The caterer, $3,500. The photographer was kind and apologetic, but the $2,000 deposit was non-refundable. Policy. The florist, the DJ, the cake designer, who had let me taste 4 different buttercreams on a Tuesday afternoon and laughed when I asked for seconds. One by one, I dismantled the day I had spent a year building. Then came the honeymoon. Non-refundable flights, a resort in the Maldives that Adrian had chosen after comparing beaches, room service menus, and private plunge pools like he was planning a military operation. Gone. By the time I finished, I was looking at about $15,000 in losses I had personally paid or was legally on the hook for. Then there was the ring, a 1.5-carat cushion cut, vintage style, based on a photo Adrian once showed me of his grandmother's ring. He had acted casual about it, but I knew him. That photo was not casual. I spent weeks finding a jeweler who could design something close without making it look like a copy. $13,000. I still remembered picking it up, sitting in my car outside the jewelry store, opening and closing the box like an idiot because I couldn't believe something so small could hold so much future. Selling it felt like burying that future without a funeral. The jeweler my father recommended was quiet and professional. He didn't ask many questions. He looked at the ring through his loupe, typed numbers into a calculator, and offered me $7,800. Less than I wanted. More than I feared. I signed in 30 seconds. That money went straight into my account. It didn't make me whole. It didn't even come close. But it was better there than sitting in a drawer, glowing like a promise someone else had broken. Then I boxed up Adrian's things. Clothes, photos, his coffee grinder, the ridiculous stuffed fox he won me at a county fair 2 summers ago, and then insisted was our first child. I labeled every box and stacked them by the door. 5 days after the police found him, he still hadn't called, and somehow that silence became the answer. People think heartbreak is loud. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's screaming into pillows or throwing photos away. But mine became quiet, clear, like fog lifting from a road and showing you there's no bridge ahead. I knew there would be a follow-up. People like Adrian don't vanish and leave the wreckage alone. They come back when the consequences arrive. And when he didn't come back for love. He came back for the ring money. The follow-up came exactly the way I expected. Not with an apology, not with accountability, with entitlement. It was a Tuesday afternoon, almost a week after I sold the ring. I work as a senior project manager at an architectural firm, so my days are usually packed with deadlines, contractors, and clients who think every revision deserves to be labeled urgent. I was halfway through presenting a commercial development proposal when my coworker Monica quietly stepped into the conference room. "Lucille, sorry to interrupt. Someone's here asking for you. She says it's important." I excused myself, mildly annoyed, expecting maybe a delivery issue or a family emergency. Instead, I walked into reception and saw Adrian. He looked nothing like the man I'd planned to marry. His eyes were swollen from crying. His beard had grown in unevenly. His hoodie was wrinkled, and he looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. For one dangerous second, a tiny part of me wanted to run to him. That part died the moment I remembered standing in a police station, wondering whether he was alive. "Lucille." His voice cracked as he stepped toward me with open arms. I instinctively took a step backward. His expression fell. "We need to talk." I kept my voice calm. "What are you doing here?" I panicked, he whispered. "I made the biggest mistake of my life." "A mistake?" His eyes filled with tears. "Darren kept telling me I wasn't ready, that maybe I was rushing everything. I started overthinking. I just needed time." "You needed time?" "I didn't know how to tell you." "You let me file a missing persons report." "I know." "You let your parents think you were dead." "I know." "You let me call hospitals." "I know." Each answer sounded smaller than the last. He lowered his head. "I'm so sorry." Silence stretched between us. Finally, he reached for my hand. "I still love you." I gently pulled my hand away. "No," I answered quietly. You loved the version of me that would always wait. His face crumbled. We can fix this. I stared at him. We'll tell everyone there was a family emergency. We'll book another venue. We can start over. Start over. As if 5 years of trust had been misplaced paperwork. As if thousands of dollars had simply wandered off by accident. As if 3 days of terror could be erased with a new wedding date. I almost laughed. Instead, I said the one sentence that froze him completely. I sold the ring. He blinked. What? I sold it. His face drained of color. You sold my ring? My ring? I repeated. It was inspired by my grandmother's. It was purchased with my money. You had no right! No right? My voice stayed surprisingly steady. I spent $13,000 on that ring. You knew what it meant to me. It represented a promise. I looked directly into his eyes. You abandoned that promise. People in reception had stopped pretending not to listen. The receptionist stared at her monitor without typing. 2 interns suddenly became fascinated by the office coffee machine. Everyone heard every word. I needed that ring back, Adrian said. For what? He hesitated. I thought... You thought I'd wait? I thought we'd still get married. I canceled the venue. His mouth opened. The caterer. Another blink. The photographer. Silence. The honeymoon. He looked physically unsteady. I've already lost over $15,000 because you disappeared. You should have talked to me first. I tried. His shoulders dropped. I called. Nothing. I texted. Nothing. I drove to your apartment. Nothing. I called hospitals. Nothing. I filed a police report. Nothing. You don't get to disappear for 3 days and then complain that I made decisions. His breathing became uneven. But the money from the ring. They're barely covered half my losses. You have to give me that money. Reception went completely silent. I honestly wondered whether I'd heard him correctly. Excuse me? The money belongs to both of us. No. We were getting married. Were. You owe me. I owe you? His voice grew louder. That was my engagement ring. Before I could answer, another voice interrupted. Lucille? It was my department director, Daniel Mercer. He had stepped into the hallway after hearing raised voices. His expression shifted from concern to confusion as he looked between us. Everything all right? Personal matter, I answered. Daniel nodded politely. Then Adrian suddenly turned toward him. She canceled our wedding without talking to me. Daniel looked uncomfortable immediately. I don't think I should be involved. She sold my engagement ring. Daniel blinked. I'm sorry. She sold it and kept the money, I finally interrupted. I sold property that I purchased after the person I intended to marry disappeared for 3 days. Daniel's eyebrows lifted. I have receipts for every payment. Adrian shook his head. That's not fair. No! I looked at him with a calmness that surprised even me. What wasn't fair was believing you were lying in a hospital while you were watching movies on someone else's couch. His eyes watered again. I was scared. So was I. I just needed space. You had 3 days to send 1 sentence. I couldn't. You chose not to. There was a difference, a huge one. He suddenly reached toward me again. Please. I stepped back once more. Don't. I still love you. I felt absolutely nothing. Not anger, not affection, not hope, only clarity. I loved the man I thought you were. His face collapsed. I don't know you anymore. He started crying openly. Employees were now openly watching from nearby offices. Daniel quietly signaled security without saying a word. You can't just erase 5 years. I didn't. You did. Security arrived a minute later. One officer approached gently. Sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave. Adrian looked at me one last time. I thought you'd forgive me. I answered with the truth. I already forgave myself for believing you'd never do this. He stood there for another second, searching my face for something that no longer existed. Then security escorted him toward the elevators. The office remained silent until the doors closed. Daniel exhaled slowly. Are you okay? I looked through the lobby windows as Adrian disappeared into the parking lot. No. I admitted it honestly. But I will be. I thought the worst was finally over. I couldn't have been more wrong, because that evening, my phone lit up with a call from his mother. And compared to Adrian, Margaret was far more dangerous. Margaret called less than 3 hours after Adrian left my office. I looked at my phone for a long moment before answering. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part wanted to hear exactly how they planned to rewrite reality. I answered. Hello? Lucille, sweetheart. That sugary tone immediately put me on guard. Margaret had always mastered the art of sounding kind, while quietly placing blame wherever it benefited her. I heard what happened today, she said softly. Adrian is devastated. I can imagine. He made a mistake. Yes. A terrible mistake. Yes. But people deserve second chances. I leaned against my kitchen counter. Some do. She paused. I thought you loved him. I did. Then why are you punishing him? That question almost made me laugh. Punishing him? You sold the ring. I sold property I purchased. You embarrassed him. He embarrassed himself. He was frightened. I was terrified. He wasn't thinking clearly. He had 72 hours to think. Silence. Then came exactly what I expected. This isn't only about emotions anymore. Of course it wasn't. There are financial matters. There usually are. We gave both of you $5,000 for the honeymoon. I closed my eyes. Here we go. You canceled the wedding. Because your son disappeared. Our gift should be returned. No. It belonged to both of you. It paid for the honeymoon resort Adrian personally chose. You never took the trip. Because Adrian vanished. She ignored that entirely. Keeping our money isn't right. I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and logged into my banking records. Margaret, I have every transfer. Our gift. I have the confirmation showing exactly where your $5,000 went. Our family. I have the resort invoice. She became noticeably quieter. It covered part of the non-refundable booking. Still. And I still lost thousands beyond that. She tried another direction. The ring money belongs to Adrian. No. I expected to get married. That ended another stretch of silence. Then she tried guilt. You know he hasn't stopped crying. I cried while calling emergency rooms. He regrets everything. So do I. Her voice softened again. Then forgive him. Forgiveness. Everyone loves that word when they aren't the one paying the price. I can forgive someone, I answered quietly. That doesn't mean I have to marry them. She didn't like that. You've become cold. No. I've become careful. She sighed dramatically. You young people give up too easily. I looked around my apartment. The stacked boxes of Adrian's belongings still waited near the front door. The wedding invitations still sat inside a drawer because I couldn't bring myself to throw them away yet. Nothing about this had been easy. I spent 5 years building a future with your son. I know. I spent 3 days believing he might be dead. I know. I spent over $15,000 cleaning up the disaster. Lucille. And he walked into my workplace asking me for money. Her silence said more than words could. Then she quietly asked, "What do you want from us?" I already knew the answer. The truth. Another pause. I want everyone to stop pretending I'm responsible for fixing something I didn't break. After a long moment, she replied, "What exactly are you saying?" I'm saying that tonight, I'm putting together a complete record of every wedding expense. What? Every vendor? Lucille, every deposit. That's unnecessary. Every cancellation fee? You don't have to. And every payment that became my responsibility after Adrian disappeared. Her breathing changed. You're making this into a legal issue. No, I'm making it factual. She tried one last emotional push. Families shouldn't keep score. I answered before she finished. Healthy families don't disappear before weddings. She had no response. I continued. I'll send copies to you, Victor, and Adrian. For what purpose? So nobody has to rely on memory. You don't trust us? I trust receipts. The conversation ended shortly afterward, not because either of us changed our minds, because there was simply nothing left to argue about. The next evening, I transformed my dining table into a command center. Invoices, contracts, bank statements, email confirmations, vendor agreements, credit card records, every document connected to the wedding. I spent nearly 6 straight hours organizing everything. A spreadsheet slowly came together. Green cells showed payments I personally made. Red cells showed money permanently lost. Yellow highlighted expenses that became my responsibility after Adrian disappeared. Every line included dates, amounts, confirmation numbers, supporting documentation. No opinions, no emotional speeches, just facts. When my best friend Rachel stopped by with takeout, she stared at my laptop. You color-coded it? I nodded. Of course you did, she smiled. I've never been prouder. I laughed for what felt like the first time in weeks. The following morning, I printed 3 complete copies, one for Adrian, one for Margaret and Victor, one for my own records. I mailed theirs by certified mail with return receipt requested. $43 in postage. The best $43 I'd spent all month. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. It was Celeste. Lucille? Hi. They got your package. I figured. My parents opened it at dinner. And? My mom tried arguing. Did it work? No. She hesitated. My dad actually read every page. That surprised me. He didn't say much. That's normal. But after he finished, she stopped again. He looked at Adrian and asked one question. What question? Is every number in here true? I waited. Celeste sighed. Adrian couldn't answer. Because they are. Mom kept trying to interrupt. And? Dad told her to stop. That alone told me everything. The house has been tense. I'm sorry. No, she laughed quietly. I'm sorry for you. Another pause. Lucille? Yes? You deserved so much better than this. For the first time since the wedding collapsed, Someone from his family finally said it aloud. I thanked her before ending the call. I thought the spreadsheet would simply end the arguments. I didn't realize it would do something even more powerful. It would destroy every false story Adrian had been telling about why our wedding never happened. And once those stories reached the people we both knew, his entire version of reality began to collapse.